Welcome to the Planting Wildflowers podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Leonardis. I'm an entrepreneur, wife, mom, and stepmom. I'm super interested in people and perspectives, and I love how a good conversation can leave you feeling empowered. Sometimes even pique your curiosity to learn and grow. Mostly though, I love how really listening to one another opens up limitless opportunities for that beautiful sense of connection and community that we all love. Thanks for tuning in. Let's be inspired. Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast today. I have a huge smile on my face, feeling so much joy in introducing one of my absolutely coolest friends. She's just a star. You will feel so much love and so much warmth from my friend, Kim Sutherland. She's so many things, guys. Here is just a brief sort of synopsis of who Kim is. But I think by the end of this conversation, based on stories and advice and tips that she has to offer, you yourself will understand the layers that this woman represents. I always struggle in the beginning introducing our guests because I feel like the labels we attach to people aren't always completely representative. So this conversation is a great way for you to be able to feel for yourself what this woman is all about. I can tell you this though, Kim is a female creator extraordinaire. She's also a mom to 3 wonderful children. She's a chef, guys, so we're gonna talk about food. And I know food is that unifying topic that we all love to speak on. Kim is also a yoga teacher. She's also a mindful eating and meditation practitioner. That's got you leaning in, I know for sure. She is a lover of her essential oils, and she is someone, I don't quite know how you define this. She is someone who can take energy, toxic energy, and spin it. She dissolves it first of all and turns it into something beautiful. She has no tolerance for toxicity in her life. It hasn't always been that way, and I'm sure she's going to share with us. But she is someone that you are going to glean a lot of useful and relevant information from, because I know that we all benefit from knowing how in the world is she able to do that. Kim, I couldn't be more excited to have you on the show today. This Planting Wildflowers podcast has been dreaming of a guest like you who can bring your light through conversation. So welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Thank you. I am so good. You know what? I am really good. I know we're in a lockdown and all these things, but this has really been a gift to me that to have this opportunity to shift and change and create and adapt and do all those things. Although that being said, it has not been a let's go full tilt kind of thing. I'm not recrafting and doing all those kinds of things. I'm 100% surviving to thrive, or thriving to survive, along that lines. But now I'm in it, got a good groove, I feel like. Yeah.
How great.
Yeah.
This is the thing, like, and there's an example of how you've taken a situation that is not ideal and transformed it into something that's really working for you. And although it presents its challenges, like lockdown's not easy. For those of you who are listening, Kim and I are coming at you from a part of Ontario where we're in pretty strict times right now. So what she is describing is a feat in and of itself, to stay optimistic and to stay moving in the direction of your dreams and your goals. But knowing that said, that you're not pulling in from the external world. You're using everything that you've always had. You just haven't had the time to bring it to fruition.
Totally. And I think that's the big piece, is that I never took the time, nor would I have taken the time had the universe not handed it to me on a big, beautiful silver platter. I would still be in a restaurant, running a team, going full tilt in like the large kitchen world, making sure that everybody was taken care of and fed, et cetera, et cetera. So this kind of this opportunity to shut the doors and be inside has really, really allowed me to get to know my kids. And I really like my kids. That's what I learned. Like, they're really fun human beings. Like, a couple times I pat myself on the back and said, like, you're doing a good job with these guys. Because they've learned to adapt. And I said, you know what, as hard as this is, and I know it's not the same for everyone, hands down, but with our kids, and mine are very electronically dependent. Like, there's a lot of this that happens in our world. But in doing so, we've also created a space for them to be able to cope already. So they can all talk to each other on their electronics. They've already had all of those tools in their social life is based around those phones and based around those video games and things like that. So that to them is just a norm to be able to socialize and interact that way. It's so foreign for us as adults, but for them, it hasn't really shifted that much. They actually think it's a means for them to do it more around my house, because they should be able to, oh, mom, I gotta talk to my friends right now. And I was like, fine, you know what, whatever. But it's really given us a chance to connect and really kind of figure out like some family dynamics that wouldn't have been there before. So
there's a blessing in everything, right?
Yes, this is hands down has been a blessing for me versus happening to me. So it has not happened to me. It has happened for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they say, I forget who said this to me in my life, but they said everything that has happened, everything that continues to happen in your life is always preparing you for what is right around the corner. So I think what you've just described is completely relative to that statement. Like, I mean, our kids, the same thing. I have 3 kids as well. Our kids are very close in age as well. So I understand the electronic, I can say this, dependency, that because that is their portal to their friends. They're not physically together. So there is this reliance. So I have learned to let go of my resistance to electronics. I was always chirping at them to put down the phone, get off do all these things. Now we have sacred time where, you know, at the dinner table, we actually speak to one another. But outside of that, I mean, I remember as a kid hopping on the phone down in my room. It's no different. Hopping on the phone means something different now. You don't actually use your voice much. But
and you don't have to dial in your third party.
That's right. That's right.
I know for us, one of the biggest things has become about that time, because I was chirping in that before. So instead of being the person that is chirping at them to get off their phone and that, I've now channeled my yoga teacher. And as long as if they're on their phone, they just got to make sure they have good posture. That's all I care about. So they have to sit like this, arms up. I don't want them all ending up as hunchbacks. So as long as they're sitting up straight, shoulders back, and bring their arms up to it, then I'm happy with that. And they can.
Oh my goodness. This is being enacted in our house.
Yeah. You know what? Because and that's an actual thing. So I teach grade 9s and 10s yoga at one of the local high schools. And that's one of the things, is that this space on the back of your neck from having your head forward like this is going to be a legit condition, and almost creates like this hump on the top of your spine. So as long as their shoulders are back and their arms are up, and I tell the kids in my class, I said, if you're not around anybody and you don't care about looking cool, do a favor to your spine and your body and just sit up nice and tall and bring your arms up here. You'll get great looking shoulders from it, and you will take away the hump on the back of your neck. So, you know what, just sit like that. And then I'm fine with you being on your electronics. It's the slumped over that gets me. Seeing that is like fires up everything of and then it spirals. So it starts as I look and I recognize that they might be in bad posture. And then I'm like, oh, and you're on your electronics too much. And what's that doing for your eyes? And have you eaten properly today? And then it's like this storm that happens in my mom world that spirals out of control for them. So
friend, I do the exact same thing. Those darn analytics, I'm sure the kids wish had never been introduced to phones where it can actually show you the amount of hours you've spent on your device.
Yeah.
Because they don't believe it, but of course we pull that up and make sure that they're aware of the time. Yes. Anyways, oh boy, parenting these days has become something that we could not have ever in a million years predicted. I think we are the last generation that did a lot of the things that we remember in our childhood years. And
yeah,
that has its good and bad for sure. It just requires a lot of us to evolve into what parenting looks like today. But I know you and your nurturing ways, you're certainly up for that challenge. You roll with the punches for sure. You mentioned a couple of things, couple categories. I really want to, I want to talk about so much with you. We probably should have booked this in a series. Let's talk about this.
Just let me know.
Okay. All right. We're gonna have you back then for sure. It's just a thing. But you've mentioned yoga for sure is something that I want to explore with you, because that is a really big piece of my own life personally right now, especially with all of the time that we're spending with ourselves. I think it's important to understand, you know, the meaning behind it, the reasons why it should continue in your life and that kind of thing. And then I want to move into your life as a chef, because I see a connection between both your you as a yoga teacher and you as a chef. They're both very nurturing qualities. Mm-hmm. And if we can somehow explore both of them and tie them together, I think it would be a unique opportunity for us to better understand the root of why you do both. So let's start with yoga. Let's do that one first.
So and it's funny because if you think about exactly how you described it, the yoga world and the food world, and that's where I bridged together and became the mindful eating and meditation practitioner, because it truly has both of my loves for both. So I did my yoga teacher training probably about 4.5 years ago. I did not intend to be a yoga teacher whatsoever. I had done yoga for some years and I really loved it and I wanted to learn more. And I did it purely to make my practice better. I went into it having no clue how monumentally different it was going to change my life and what we were going to do, because it was a 200-hour course. So I studied it for 200 hours, but it's not just a course where you learn to teach a bunch of poses and stuff like that. Like, we dove deep into our core. So some people are like, oh yeah, no, I can't do yoga. No, like anyone can do yoga, and there's 8 limbs to like a lifestyle of what yoga looks like. So it's kind of a big picture of things, and the poses are just one of those limbs. So there's a whole lot else, and that in itself is a whole podcast, which I will leave for someone who's much more schooled than me in that. But from my personal experience in it, I did it with who has become a great friend, and the things I learned about myself and how to just find that space of quiet and that authentic space, and just how to move through the ebb and the flows. And like you said about how we never anticipated being here, and we just kind of have to go with things. That has been kind of hit to my core of where the last 5 or 6 years have been in my life. And someone kept mentioning the term let go and let God to me, and I was like, whatever. I came from a kitchen. I ran corporate kitchens, like feeding thousands of people. If I didn't have control over every single detail, it would not have worked out as well the next day. So I was very in a space of controlling things. And then all of a sudden, I ended up getting separated. I moved out of my house. I was now a single mom. I had a job that I was going to that I got that I was part of that I got let go from. And then I had another job that I got let go from. And I'd never been let go from a job in my life. And now I was let go twice in 1 year. I was fired twice in 1 year. And it was 100% because the universe had a different direction for me to go. And I needed to start recognizing that. And I could feel that it was something, but I couldn't quite figure out what it was. So the yoga kind of brought that out, and I still practice. I'm not good at practicing at home, which is funny because I say, like, I have all the tools to teach myself. Like I literally could pull out like 25 poses, but there's something about being in that community of a room that I really love. And I really draw from. But I used to actually, when I had first started, I would almost make fun of the people that said, oh, I just need to get back on my mat. Oh yeah, no, I need to be, you know what, just go back to your mat. And I'm like, whatever, that's not a thing for me. And now it's very much become a thing for me. And I realize when I haven't checked in, or when life has gotten too busy and I'm not doing the work around journaling, meditating, anything like that, I'm kind of like, oh yes, I very easily can jump back on the hamster wheel and get going into the busyness of life. So yeah, it has been a big piece of my life. I love doing it. Like I love doing it. There are many moments for me that have been very definitive on that yoga mat that I can't imagine not having now. And I can't imagine being where I am without having taken that path, for sure. And I love sharing it. I love sharing it because I love pushing the boundaries with people that have this notion of what yoga is like, or this notion of no, I can't meditate. My brain doesn't stop going. I'm like, that's fine. Your brain's not supposed to stop. You're just supposed to control your thoughts as they come in and out. So don't force them to stop, kind of thing. So I said, if I can teach grade 9s and 10s to go into like a perfect shavasana in a matter of seconds now, and by like week 3, these kids are like, when do we get to have nap time? Are we having nap time now? I'm like, guys, like 5 poses.
Is that what they call shavasana? Is there nap time?
Yeah. And it was funny last year at we had started late because of the lockdown, and we were trying to figure out logistics. And then they brought me on to teach outside. So I had my group of grade 9s outside, and all of a sudden I could see like some of my graduates, my grade 11s and grade 12s coming out. And I was like, hey guys, like, did you just come to do some poses and that? And the one guy was like, Kim, you don't know how much I need this right now. Like I need to be here. And I was like, yes, you absolutely need to be here. And he's like, I'm just going to do like the final shavasana. I need to just be in a quiet space. And I said to them, I always encourage them and encourage myself or whoever to give yourself permission to just be in that space. Mm-hmm. So I give them permission to give themselves permission to just stop, like be okay with just stopping. You don't have a phone. No one's calling you to do anything. You can just be right now on this mat and just lay there. And if you nod off and fall asleep, well, then so be it, kind of thing. And these kids are like, and of course, the first couple of weeks, because most of them are 14-year-old boys, they're super awkward. So the first couple of weeks, they're awkward and fidgety. And I have a 14-year-old boy who is in the class as well. So I totally get where they're coming from. So they're a little uneasy. And then usually by week 3, it's a matter of like seconds that these kids shut down. And the one, I would say one of the greatest gifts that has ever been given back to me, a mom had contacted me probably about 4 or 5 weeks into the class. And she sent me a message. She said, I don't know what you told my son or you tell him, but he does whatever you tell him every night to fall asleep. And he is a completely different child. Oh. He puts his phone down and he runs this dialogue in his head of how, because when I started with them on putting their feet to sleep and then moving up their ankles, and you slowly allow your body to get heavier and relax. And that's what the kids started doing to get to bed at night. And the response, and to have these parents come back and say like how valuable this yoga was to them and how valuable it continues to be to me, that to me is one of the greatest gifts I could give someone, is that being able to just give them the tools that they need. And that's one of my favorite things, is I have all these tools. Like I really need to, I want to share them with everybody. Here's the tool. Here's a tool. Here you go. You want this? Yeah, take this kind of thing. So
See, you're that unique person. I am a big believer in arming yourself with all the tools, to use your words, but you also have this giving spirit. And I think it takes the combination of both of those to be able to facilitate change for other people. And I think I need to ask you this question, because on so many of our episodes on this podcast, we have talked about mental wellness. And as you're speaking, all I can think is, this is incredible. And while those kids might not quite know how to articulate what it is that you're doing for them, you are impacting, yes, their physical being for
yeah,
sure. But what you're actually accessing for them is relief from mental stress,
yeah.
emotional unwellness. And I wonder, can you comment a little bit more on that? Because this is a topic that has become so dear to my heart. And as someone who also has a 14-year-old boy,
Yeah.
I want to pull from you a couple tidbits. Maybe the listeners today can walk away with a couple of key pieces of information that they can apply in their own lives, or if they're moms or they're involved with children in some way. How do we leverage the tools, even if we're not a yoga teacher like you
Mhm.
are? How do we use those tools to impact the emotional and mental wellness of these kids and ourselves?
Totally. And I totally get that. And it's funny because so often it's easier for me to, or I guess I was unaware that it's kind of how I am with my guys on a regular basis. And of course I always go back to them. I'm like, hey, am I being attentive enough? Am I kind of thing? Because I'm doing it for so many other kids. And whenever I was working, I was doing it for so many other kids. So a couple of things that were really have been game changers. One of the biggest game changers I had with these kids is we talked about failing.
Okay.
What's wrong with failing? What is wrong with failing at something? You're not supposed to be great at everything. Why is there something bad about failing? Why do we put a judgment and a shame around not being great at everything? So, you know what? You're not the best badminton player. So I had a whole conversation with them, these kids, because again, a lot of them are like high level hockey players. They're encouraged to be really great at everything. They're encouraged to get the best marks. They're encouraged all this. And there's a pressure that we as parents put on them in that, and they feel it in that when we're asking about their schooling and how they're doing. We're asking about this. And of course, it comes purely from a place of love that we want them to be successful at everything. We want them to be so great and have everything they can in the world in that. But what's wrong at not being great at everything? It's in our greatest failures, or our failures, that we learn our greatest lessons in life. So why are we trying to take that away from someone else to learn those lessons and just set them up to fall so much harder if they do fail? So we had talked about, so this class, we started talking about failures, and I asked them what they had failed at. And we did it from a space of celebrating. What have you failed at? What aren't you great at? Well, I'm not great at badminton, and I wasn't great at my math test, Kim. Like it was way harder than I thought. And all of a sudden the conversation was around, okay, well then what's the lesson you learned in that? Well, I learned I really need to study more. And I learned I should pay more attention when I'm doing this. I learned that I'm just not physically built to do that kind of thing. And I was like, okay. So then our yoga class that went with it was all like super hard, windy, pretzel-y poses. Like ones that are very challenging for us to physically do. And these guys went in with this thought that, oh yeah, it's yoga, I'm going to be able to do it, like I'm an athlete. And then I twisted them up and put them on one foot, and they're falling over and things like that. And we celebrated the fact that they couldn't do it. And we acknowledged the fact that, you know what, your body just doesn't go that way. Yours goes that really great that way. This is something that you can continue. You can work towards this. But you know what? Who cares if you can't do it? It's not going to, it shouldn't be something that is so massive that it should affect your life to a point of not being able to cope, not being able to move forward, not being able to just acknowledge that. And part of the reason I was thinking when we were talking earlier about stress and how much I hate the word stress, because we've washed everything down with the term stress. So feelings are both sadness is a feeling, happiness is a feeling, joy, their emotions are feelings, but there's nowhere that says you shouldn't be feeling like the sadness, that you shouldn't be feeling like joy towards something. Like we put so much celebration on the ones that make us happy, and almost the shame around the ones that make us sad or don't make us feel it. You know what? You can recognize that it's a feeling. You know what? Today I'm feeling kind of sad. Today I'm not really there. Try not to become the feeling. Try not to embrace it so much that your entire day gets, oh, I was sad this morning. I wonder why I was sad this morning. Why would I be sad right now? And then we create that because we're trying to justify it and reason it and create that story around it where, you know what? Yeah, I was sad this morning. Yeah, okay. Right. It really only has to be that big. We don't have to jump on the, and I know I am guilty of this. My one child was struggling in being home, and I was so worried. Oh my gosh, he's getting depressed. He's getting this. And I allowed myself to go into that. And he was like, Mom, no, I just really want to be out of the house. I want to do something. I'm missing playing football, and I'm not depressed or anything. And I was like, oh, he's like, I promise, Mom, I'm okay. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had taken all of those fears that I had about it and essentially had created them around him when he was just like, no, it's not that bad. And I was like, oh, okay. I'll just stop with that then. But so many times it's our analyzing of those emotions that creates and spirals into something bigger for us because we don't feel like we should feel this way. Why would I feel this way? I don't understand. And that in turn spins our mental wellness to a point where it's like a top out of control. And I always said that I love that we as adults and we as women, and that we're having all these really great conversations about our feelings and bringing an awareness to them and our mindsets and thoughts around that. One of the things I challenge anyone that's listening is to bring the younger generation with us. Have those vulnerable conversations around your children. Be a human being. One of the greatest moments in my parenting life was, and I truly believe it was a game changer for where I am as a parent, was I was in the middle of separation. We're in the middle of selling our house. The tension was huge. I was going my own way. I call my ex my husband because he was my husband, and ex sounds negative to me. So he is my husband. He's a really good guy. So my husband was going a different direction. And there was 1,000 things we could have fought about. And I had lashed out and yelled at my kids. And Monica was only about 5 at the time. And I yelled at her like a bubbling pot had just boiled over. And she went running upstairs to her room, and I sat down on the floor and I started crying, and I cried and cried and ugly cried. And my two boys were there, and they said, my oldest said, his name's Ethan. He says, Quinn, who's my middle, he's like, Quinn, you go up and get Monica. I'm going to stay here with mom. Okay, so they went up and got Monica and they brought her down, and we were sitting on the floor in the kitchen together. And I looked at them and I said, like, guys, I didn't plan this. I didn't plan for our lives to go this way. I honestly have no clue what I'm doing in all of this, but I truly believe that as long as we're together and that you guys are on my team, that we can figure it out. But I don't know what to do. I don't know. I know we're going to have a house, and I know we'll have food on our table. I don't know what the rest of the stuff's going to look like, but maybe if we keep having conversations, we'll figure it out. And they were kind of like, yeah, like, mom, like, we're on your team. We'll figure this out. And it all of a sudden made me a human to my kids. It made me more like them, so they could empathize with where I was at, and that I wasn't planning to feel this way. And it made the feeling side of things a really attainable conversation in our household, because we can talk about how we're feeling now. And I'm very open when I'm not feeling how I am, how I've done a lot of work to be able to stand in my truth and kind of check in with myself. And I almost do like a self audit and go, okay, like, where am I at right now? What am I thinking? Why am I feeling this way? And just kind of, as much as I want them to all be great, I now put myself at the front of all of those. And I realize that when I do that, I'm able to shift myself a whole lot more to be in a space with them that is totally love. And it's that calling on myself and calling myself out on the, okay, why am I yelling at my kid right now? Why am I being triggered by a comment that I read on social media? Like, it's asking those questions. Why is this bothering me so much? Why am I letting this bother me so much? And so there's a lot of that internal dialogue that I have with myself. And then I kind of go, and now that I've had enough of those with myself, I'm able to recognize it and then let it go. And I think that's what one of the biggest pieces for our mental wellness is, being able to recognize those things, knowing that maybe this is something I've taken from someone else's energy. We're in such a space right now where we're feeding off each other so much, whether it be this way or someone at the grocery store or things like that, that we're almost absorbing that negative energy from other people and then trying to figure it out on our own. But a lot of times it's just, okay, you know what? No, that's not mine. No, that's someone else's. Okay, no, I'm actually okay. Why am I getting myself all wound up about rationalizing all of it?
This is good. This is good. I think these tools that you're talking about, you've just described another extraordinarily useful tool, the self audit.
Yeah.
If we can pause for a moment, and I think that might be the key, is finding the pause. Quick self audit, identify what the issue is within ourselves and find a way to express it. I mean, you again would introduce one of your tools, either conversation, if it's with your kids, or an expression physically through a yoga practice. These are ways that we can move through. And I'm not a professional in the world of mental wellness, but being a feeling person like yourself, I know that these things that you're describing are extraordinarily effective.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you've shared them and given us these are, like, you just shared a big personal piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another healing quality or a healing tool, being able to share your vulnerability with other people. It's not the easiest thing to admit, I'm sure. Maybe it's become, I mean, when you put yourself back in the moment, it's not easy to remember yelling
No.
at the kids and, all of the feelings associated with that. But you're sharing that, I'm positive, I know myself, I'm picturing a moment or two, or maybe a handful of moments
Yeah.
where I have just let it rip on the kids, and it doesn't do anybody any good.
No.
Um, but it is very healing to find ways to move through that. And our mental wellness is dependent on it right now. Our emotional well-being, we need to lean in on these tools. I love that you shared it.
And even if it's something not as, if you can't even wrap your head around that, now I'm reaching for something. So one of the, Jeff and I, before we separated, did a lot of marriage counseling, and we marriage counsel with the intent of, let's make it so we're as successful as possible as individual parents, and what that family dynamic looks like. So we did a lot of work around recreating those family spaces as me and the kids as a family, him and the kids as a family.
Right.
And one of the key pieces that we learned during marriage counseling that we use as a tool here, I used as a tool when I was in working in a space, and I strongly, strongly encourage it, is learning the art to respond versus react.
Okay.
So in doing that, if you have a Post-it note around, and you don't have to do anything with it, but when you're in that space, I challenge you to become aware, and you can feel your emotion going up, and you can feel like you're about to lash out, and like I'm very aware of how hard my words hit. They can hit hard, and I can do it very intentionally, and it's coming at you and it's going to bite. So part of the challenge came from learning how to, when I feel that way, knowing that it is not going to serve anyone to have me react that way. I'm going to hurt the person I'm barking at. I'm going to feel guilty about it afterwards. The feeling afterwards is not going to be as beneficial as I would create it. And I know that reality. We're smart enough. We know that before we say the words. Take a Post-it note and hand it to the person that you have, or something. It could be a pen. It could be something. That is your automatic timeout. And what that piece is, you can explain it to your family or your partner or whoever before, and say, when you see me hand this to you, don't poke the bear. Don't come at me. Don't, honestly, just stop talking and walk away. I know you're going to walk away, and it's in everyone's best interest for you to do that. And then I will take my time out. It's like a timeout. So you're giving yourself and the conversation a chance to diffuse and to be able to go back and go, okay, you know what? Like, there is literally no reason what my husband doesn't not love me because he didn't put the dishes away. He was busy doing other things. He still loves me. I know he loves me. You know what? That's fine. We're a partnership. We'll figure out the dishes. I'll do them this time for him because I know he's doing math homework with the kids. I'm not going to get that angry about it. Why would I get that angry? And it's kind of like you're giving yourself a moment, and you're giving the situation a moment, whether it be for your kids, and it takes you out of that reactionary state and puts you in that state of responding. So you can think about it, take a couple deep breaths. Like I'm a lover of like big, juicy, deep breaths, like in through your nose.
Let that belly expand.
And then just let it all out, and just even like 3 times. And I believe that we as a society and humankind don't breathe enough to begin with, because it changes everything about how you do everything. If you just breathe, like not to, like, I know we breathe, but do you really breathe, and how often do you do it? So if you just have that little timeout thing and like 3 deep breaths, I guarantee you will return to that conversation in a completely different state, in a different role with a different intention, and so will the person that you're about to go to battle with. Because being on this side of a marriage that has ended, I had all those tools back then, we might have been in a different place.
Sure.
It might have gone different. It might have, all of those conversations might have ended really differently had I learned all these tools beforehand. And that, to me, they would have gone differently in a workspace, for many of us in a parenting space, in a friendship space, definitely in family situations where we pull up so many past emotions and that. So yeah, that is have that timeout tool, and then take those 3 breaths and then go forward with whatever it is you're going to do.
Healing. Cue the healing. I love it. And when we were introing you, we were trying to come up with that juicy word that, because you are someone who takes toxic energy and puts that positive, or you dissolve it or dissipate it. You use the word dissipate. So maybe your official term is toxic energy dissipator. And I love that it is just as simple as what you've described. So once we become aware of the situation, we employ a tool like you've just described, handing over the Post-it note or the pen. And, this, like anything else, will take work. But man, these are the kinds of things that are nuggets. They serve as inspiration for people to move in a new direction of their lives. And I just love your willingness to share that. Let's talk about that topic that joins us all together. That topic, I know this seems like a real sharp 180, but all I can sense in our conversation today is this underlying current of nurturing love. And that brings us very seamlessly into the role that you have shared with us in your experiences as a chef. And I'm very lucky, for those who are listening, I'm very lucky to have been the recipient of many of Kim's creations in her role as a chef. She's extraordinary. But the thing that always stands out to me, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is you bring the food to life. So there's been so many situations. For me, it's been mostly in group settings where I've had the privilege of experiencing your food. But what I love is that before anyone begins to actually consume the food, you talk about it, you glorify it with your words, and you let everyone know that there is more to this than the food itself, like the items on the plate, that there's intention in the food, and that there's emotion attached to it. And I think that changes the experience of eating. And I know that we're going to talk about your mindful eating, and this ties into it, but let's first begin with the world of being a chef. I don't want to call you Chef Kim, because I know that you get called that an awful lot. And that is one element, one distinction of who you are. You are a chef, yes, but you're also this big ball of love combined with incredible talent in the kitchen. So share with us a little bit about your world as a chef.
So that's funny that you actually, because we had talked about this before and you didn't want to know the defining moment that I was going to tell you about, and you just set up the defining moment so perfectly.
Okay.
So perfectly, like you had crawled inside me and we're able to pull it out. So kind of where we're going with this is I've been in a kitchen for 20-ish years. There was a couple moments in my life where the universe have said, you know what, like, you're really great at it. We love that you're doing it. To me, my gift to people was always food. I always think about it, if an artist can paint a picture and you look at the art and you find it beautiful in that, to be able to consume someone's art and take it inside. So my art directly becomes part of your body.
Yeah.
When you're eating it, that to me, when I recognized that kind of took it to a different level. And that really set in place the energy that was going into that. And on my my other side of my life, that in my kitchen and restaurant world, I actually created a like a leadership kind of training mental wellness program for people in the industry, because I believe that when a chef is making the food that tastes really great and hands it off to this server or whoever that brings it to the table, and they do it with happiness, then the person in the restaurant eats it and they're consuming that happiness, then they go out and they're sharing that, and that ripple effect is a game changer to be able to try that. So I always to me, it was just like, it was cooking and I loved doing it, but I didn't realize, I knew how therapeutic it was for me to create the items, but I didn't quite understand it to the level of people taking in the items until just recently, since I've had the opportunity to leave the kitchen. So part of the reason I left the kitchen industry is because in what I did realize is that my children were at a place where they could not lie anymore. So being the parents, and everybody, you would think someone would be encouraging that. Yeah, you don't want your kids to lie, Kim. But being the children of a chef, every time they ran into someone and they found out what I did, someone would say, wow, you must be really lucky. Like your mom must make really great food at home. And their answers used to be, oh, I love it when she makes salmon. Oh yeah, mashed potatoes are really great. I love my mom's gravy, things like that. And then one day their answers became, no, I had like marshmallows and cereal for dinner. Oh, I had microwave popcorn. Yeah, I didn't even have dinner. And I realized that I was doing everything in my life to make sure everyone else was taken care of. All of their events were planned very well. All of their food was executed fantastically. Meanwhile, my kids were eating marshmallows for dinner.
I don't mean to laugh, but I've
Oh
had
no, totally. Of course, who like I could, now that we look back on it and think of how many times we made those, we were in a space of survival and made those choices, and they had to make those choices, or they got leftovers brought home, or they got something thrown together quickly. Certainly not what anyone would anticipate a chef's children would be consuming. Let's just put it that way. Like the bus driver who doesn't go on road trips. I was not coming home to cook. I spent all day cooking. I did not want to. And my kids ended up getting the brunt of that. So this, when all of this happened and lockdown happened, that became an opportunity for me to be able to share those gifts of food with them. And that has truly been a gift. Although my oldest said, Mom, it took 14 years and a lockdown for you to finally make breakfast for us. And I was like,
yes,
yeah, totally did. That's exactly what happened. So, but one of the other big moments for me was at a catering that you were at, Rebecca, and I was in this space at a mutual friend of ours' house in this countertop. And there was such a beautiful energy around everything that was happening. And I knew everybody would be excited to come and have dinner. And I had been in this exact space catering for this same group of people numerous times. But there was something different that was happening in me. And I was kind of trying to figure out what was more. Like there had to be more. I couldn't just be in this small space of being a chef. That was had too much of a title around it, because that's what I did, but that's not who I am. So, but what did that look like? And as I was presenting the food, there was something inside me that shifted to my belief that this countertop was actually my altar. And this was my way of being in service. This was how I served, because I was in a space of, I wanted to know how you were eating the food. I wanted you to feel the love that I put into it. I wanted you to embrace that moment that we're sharing. I was as concerned on how your body was taking in all of that nutrition and all those flavors and all that goodness as I was about how the next person, or how I would, like, it to me was a defining moment in my level of service and how I do things. And it became my service is not just in the food on the plate. My service is in the love that I have to share and how I'm going to go about sharing that and giving it to people. And it was, I had never, like, I went to a Catholic high school and that, and I stopped believing in religion as a structure when I was in like grade 10. I kind of went the other way, but I have always been a very spiritual person. And I am deeply rooted in my belief of a bigger presence. I didn't say God till about like 3 years ago. I just didn't say it. I actually did everything to not say it. But now I'm in a place where I can very openly have a conversation about my belief in God, my team upstairs, how powerful they are and how they're directing me. But I had never looked at a countertop as an altar before. And that was me sharing to you what that food was and everything that went into it. That was giving you a piece of me in that form of service. And it was, that moment really, it changed my purpose in life and how I go about doing things yeah, it was a huge moment. And it wasn't until I recognized it when I was in the moment, and then I came back to it afterwards. And then I came back to it when I saw everybody share all these beautiful photos, and there was all these great videos. And of course, because we have so much fun together, all of us.
Yeah, of course.
And we always love talking about the food and everything about it. So it kind of just, the message kept coming up and kept coming up and kept coming up. Like, this is the service, Kim. This is the service. This is how you are. And I've been looking for I guess I wouldn't really be looking. They've been waiting for that moment where I kind of figure out, like, what's my next thing? Because there's not really a food and beverage industry. Like, I don't have a kitchen to go back into. I don't have a space that would hold the volume of things that I can do. So what was that next thing going to be? And this was what has created the next thing. So.
Oh, the next thing. You know what? I love that you shared that moment. You just took me back to that meal presentation. I remember feeling like it was the right space for all of us. It was this beautiful moment. I can actually remember the way the overhead lights over the counter were hitting the food.
Yeah.
And we don't pause often enough to appreciate those moments. I think it's really cool that something in you was like literally giving you that heart tap, say, hey, this is, let this be your moment. Let this be, where you realize that you've got this form of giving, and it's going to evolve into something really special. Everything you've done so far has been special. And I think that's what we don't often recognize in ourselves. Even when we take a new path, we have to recognize that everything we've done has been extraordinary. And when a new path presents itself, that was just the prep. That was really the prep. So I'm excited for you. We're going to let's talk about the mindful eating and meditation offering that you have for people, because this is unique. Even saying the words mindful. I mean, if you haven't heard the word mindful, or someone hasn't encouraged you to be more mindful, then I'm kind of wondering where you've been hanging out lately. Eating, something we all do, and meditation, something that I invite people to look into deeper. You've combined mindful eating, meditation. This is what you're offering to the world. So tell us all the things.
So this had kind of fallen into my lap. So one of my favorite things to make, and has been for many, many years, is chocolate chip cookies. And I love the duality of like high profile executive chef making something as simple as a chocolate chip cookie. And it is my thing. And the reason it's my thing is because I feel like it is a hug from the inside. That's what the cookie tastes like. So when I had started to make them, and I really wanted to encourage people to just stop what they were doing and enjoy the cookie. So when we had gone into lockdown, I started to make my cookies. I've made them for hundreds of people. I've made them as sympathy gifts. I've made them as encouragement. You can imagine everything. There's been a cookie. And people have used them as a currency. Actually, my children think that they are actually a currency. Well, we could just buy that with mom's cookies, just trade cookies for it. Actually, Monica, my youngest, said when she is the prime minister, she is going to make my chocolate chip cookies an actual currency to purchase things. And I love that. So I was handing them out to people, and I would box them up and put a nice little ribbon on them. And then I would just put notes about, and it's kind of fun how it evolved, because it kind of started as a control thing of, I want you to stop what you're doing and enjoy my cookie. And then I realized, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I've spent so many years watching people shovel food into their mouths, my household included, and like not even thinking about the time that went into making that. And that kind of ticked me off, A, as a mom, B, as a chef, where I was like, guys, like, do you know what I'm doing to make that food? And you guys are just like hoofing it in your mouth, and you're going back to your video games, which I'm sure has been the dialogue in many of our households. And I'm sure you're all thinking of that moment. Oh yeah, I remember I made this great dinner and I was so excited, because I get excited when I'm doing it too.
Of course.
So I had realized that many times I had watched people just grab food and shovel it in their mouth. Oh yeah, it tastes great. And I was like, but did you really taste it? Like, did you taste it? So so then I started to making these chocolate chip cookies, and I put like a little guided meditation on these cookie boxes, like put down your phone, take the cookie into your hand, close your eyes, breathe, like big juicy breath in, be aware of what's in your hand. And then as you open your eyes, slowly put the cookie in your mouth and absorb what the flavor is. So there's this little thing around it. And I was like, you know what, like, it's not rocket science. I didn't think it was rocket science. So I said, there's got to be someone who's created something around this. So off I go to Indigo. Ended up literally having a book fall off the shelf that was a course designed around being a mindful eating and meditation practitioner.
It fell off the shelf.
I had my hip pack on my shoulder, and I hit this book, and it fell onto the ground. And Monica, of course, because my children realize at this point in my life that there's like those moments happen on a regular basis. So of course, Monica's like, yep, there it is right there, Mom. Of course, like literally jumped off the shelf at you, jumped right off. Now I don't say that at the liquor store for wine or anything. If something, she is like, yeah, clearly you're meant to have that book. And I'm like, yes, I am. Of course I am. So then it turned out that book was actually a course that I could take, and then I could therefore finish the course and teach it to people. So where it had the fun part, they had never had a chef take the course before, which I thought was kind of cool. But then I thought, why? Like, what do you mean? Like, we should be taking it. I want to know how people are eating my food. Right. I want to know if they're getting that message. How do I convey that message of love in a little bit better? So then we had done a couple different meditations. And I've always been, the yoga teacher in me has always been a advocate for finding, I call it finding meditation in the mundane. I call it that because I don't have a dishwasher in my house. The chef in the household makes a lot of dishes.
Yeah.
And then I usually do the dishes afterwards. So the kids will help, of course, but sometimes when they're off doing things, I'll do the dishes, and I don't enjoy doing the dishes. So I made an intention of finding meditation in that moment. I'm going to make this a meditative moment. So I'm going to turn on my music. I'm going to put on my diffuser. I'm going to pour myself a glass of water. I'm going to make this a moment for me to find the joy in it and kind of complete the whole package. So then I realized, I was like, okay, like all of these little rituals I just started when I was doing the dishes, I actually have when I'm creating food. And I like, to me, it is a space of enjoyment and a space of happiness. That being said, it's because it's also very easy to me to do. And then I thought, well, what if it was just a matter of being aware and bringing that mindfulness to that space? Anyone can do that. Anyone can be aware of the energy that is carried in their food. Anyone can be aware of the difference between throwing a frying pan, grabbing something, throwing it in, and doing it in this state of, oh, I don't want to have to cook. Now I'm cooking and blah, and all of that, versus, okay, you know what? It's time for us to eat. I need food. I'm going to get the pan. I'm going to prepare this. Oh, you know what? I'm going to set myself up so I'm in a space of enjoying it, which even the busiest person can find 5 minutes to make themselves something nourishing and good. And even if it's not nourishing and good, just scoop the ice cream into the bowl, being aware of what you're doing. Sure. And not in a state of like anger and judgment. And so the mindful piece kind of comes from where it's just about bringing an awareness to it. Bring an awareness to the fact that I'm going to eat this bowl of ice cream, and I'm going to be completely happy because of how much I've enjoyed this bowl of ice cream. And I did that with an apple pie. I made myself an apple pie. Never happens. And then I ate the entire apple pie with a fork for breakfast, with the belief that I was not going to be guilty about it. I was not going to be mad at myself. I was not going to judge myself. I was purely going to recognize that I ate this pie just to enjoy eating the pie. And how much that can shift your way around food and around how you feel about your food and how you believe it. So I had done a class a couple weeks ago where I taught them how to, their mindful eating meditation was based on 5 chocolate chip cookies, or 5 chocolate chips, sorry, just 5 chocolate chips. And if you actually pause to put the chocolate chip on your tongue, let it melt and absorb the flavor, how you're not going to need a chocolate bar once you're done those 5 chocolate chips. And I almost promise it will happen. So it said you can follow a really great diet. You can follow a really great workout plan. But if you still have triggers and traumas and challenges around the food you're eating, you're not going to be as successful around that. If you go into a space of judgment when you eat it, if you go into a space of guilt, if you start shaming yourself for falling off of your eating plan versus just recognizing it and go, okay, you know what, I will do better next time. So a lot of it's around just bringing that mindfulness and acceptance to what it is you're doing, recognizing where you're at.
Yeah, because this is totally, I'm speaking from a place of experience here. There's been so many programs that I have started, exercise programs are what float through my mind first and foremost. But there always has to be a food component to it. And if you don't have a genuine appreciation for the food,
yeah,
you can fall into, in my situation, I'm only leveraging my own experience, this feeling of deprivation. So I almost feel resentful of either the program or the food or the people around me who are still eating whatever it is that they want. There is this distorted relationship that happens a lot of times. So what you're offering is very, I feel instantly excited about it, because it's like, oh, okay, this is the piece, this is the precursor to an amazing exercise program. Because I mean, you can't have a healthy body without consuming the right things and moving your body, right? Like that's just the equation of a healthy body. But what you're offering is that the missing piece. It's the nugget that we've been searching for.
Yes, which is once I had finished the course and kind of had that moment, and I was like, like this to me makes total sense, because again, even I go into that space of, oh crap, now I fell off. Oh, yep. Well, there you go. My whole workout program shot now. And oh, I really wish I was having one of those. So it's a matter. And that being said, the people in the health industry are in no way concerned about the people in the food industry, and the people in the food industry are in no way concerned about the health industry.
Oh, crazy.
That gap that's like a world away from each other. We don't even acknowledge that the other one exists on a whole.
They're critical to each other.
They're unbelievably critical to each other, but we don't learn the one in school. Just like a nutritionist doesn't learn how to cook.
Right.
They learn their book of stuff. And this course was in with like 22 nutritionists and dietitians. Okay. And once we started having these conversations, we kind of went, wow, we have completely different ways of thinking about these things. And the food industry does things purely for the goal of making it taste really great and look really great. So if those mashed potatoes are made with 35% cream, well, then of course they're going to be made with 35% cream, because they're going to be creamy and delicious. Yep. And you're going to love me more because I make these creamy, delicious potatoes. Although you're going to hate yourself later because you ate the creamy, delicious potatoes. So this to me was like it was like gapping the bridge in being able to do this and kind of realize the mindset and where it has to be. And I remember one of my favorite stories to tell is the moment that I started having issues and questioning myself from a physical standpoint, and I was in grade 5. And the story is quite a descriptive story about my Coconut Joe golf shirt I had under my Coconut Joe matching sweater with my white denim skirt, my yellow tree torns on, white lipstick, and my mall bangs. And I was listening to In
Hello, 80s child.
Yeah, right. And I was listening, and I was walking back to the school, and one of the kids had yelled, "Where's the beef?" And it was at the time that there was a Wendy's commercial on television. Yeah. And me and my 2 friends were walking up, and I was like, "What's he talking about?" And he said, "Well, where's the beef?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, she's the pretty one and she's the smart one. So you must be the chubby one, like the beef." And I was like,
oh my God.
At that moment, I took that as my label, and I embraced that for many, many years to come. I thought of that every time I tried on a bathing suit, every time I tried on something in a change room, every time I absorbed that limiting belief and that label of myself for many years. Now, fast forward 20 years later, I said something to the guy and told him how hurt I was by that. And he was like, yeah, like I never thought you'd take that on. I didn't think, like, I was just making a joke. That was my perception. Sure. That had nothing to do with him. That was me and how I embraced that. So once I had a chance to, I kind of did almost like my audit of all of the times I have jumped on a diet bandwagon, fallen off a diet bandwagon, all the times I jumped on a healthy plan, whether it be an Atkins, a keto, a this, a that, whatever it was. And it was like a really adventurous roller coaster, up and down and up and down. And it wasn't until I actually sat back and went, okay, you know what? I know that's not how the lineup's supposed to go. So I'm going to eat nutritious food, and I love eating nutritious food. But I'm going to do it. And when I'm not eating nutritious food, like 2 weeks ago, when I ate the whole pie, or I ate an entire container of Ferrero Rocher for dinner, you know what? I'm just going to be okay with it. I did it. I enjoyed it. I'm just going to embrace it. Yeah, I'm embracing it. You know what? I will walk a little bit harder tomorrow. I won't eat a container of Ferrero Rocher tomorrow. I'll drink extra glasses of water. So it's just those changing our mindset around it and really accepting where we're at. Because for a lot of those, it's not attainable to follow those plans for a lot of people.
You're right. You are 100% right.
It's not, nor do we like it. Food is a beautiful, beautiful gift. And to be able to take it in its whole. And so when you're eating something, you can actually train your body to, if you're eating it like, oh, I'm eating this, I have to eat this lettuce, and this is so terrible. Your body's not going to be as accepting of the nutrition you're taking. Whereas if you're looking at it like, this is going to be the best piece of broccoli I have ever had. It is going to fill me with all these vitamins and this, and almost that little positive spin on it, then your body's going to absorb it differently, and it's going to absorb that energy differently. And you're going to find your output will be completely different in it.
It's like you just went in my head. I eat a lot of healthy food, a lot. But the one thing that I really cannot wrap my head around is broccoli. When I see it in front of me, I literally have to talk to myself about it. Why would I eat this? You know, if I'm having a good day, I can find the reasons why it's beneficial for me to take it in. But on days where I am not on my game, the way I receive that food is so different. It's disgusting. It stinks up the house. It does all the, you know, like I can look for every negative element of eating broccoli. And I'm quite certain that it doesn't really serve me to eat it when I'm in that headspace. However, you know, the kids will even notice. They know that I don't necessarily love the taste of broccoli, but when I eat it and they're like, Mom, we thought you hated broccoli. Why are you eating it? I'm in a good headspace. I'm being mindful about it. So I'm sharing with them. This is one of the best ways for me to access this, and this. I know it's good for me. I also know that my taste buds still have this opportunity to maybe experience it a little bit differently. I don't know.
Your taste buds actually regrow every 30 days.
Oh, I didn't know that. Every 30 days.
Yes, approximately 30 days. Faster if you burn your tongue on coffee, if you have like a cracker that scrapes the top of them more. They're very, very thin at the top of your tongue, and you have an opportunity to damage them, and then they regrow. Your tongue is one of the fastest healing parts of your body. Wow. So they're constantly regrowing. So if the dialogue in your head changes, you can very much think of something that you might not have liked as a child and that you really like now. And it was because you changed that. Like, how would you ever know that you like chocolate unless you told you, oh, you know what, this smells good. Everybody loves chocolate. Everybody talks about how much they love chocolate. Like if broccoli had the marketing that chocolate has, we'd all be like wrestling each other in the broccoli aisle, for Pete's sake.
Right. It's so true.
So, but it's getting that mindset around it. So if you're looking at it with a different thought, if you were to, one of the things we had done was taken a handful of what we thought we really loved, and then something that would be like a secondary snack. So I went these little chocolate chip cookies or like Fritos corn chips, because they're very, very distinct, different flavors. And then you had to take on your plate how much you think you're going to eat, and then give yourself a little bit more. And then slowly take like one. So I picked the cookies, and then I took the cookie and you put it in your mouth, and you recognize that, well, first, before you do that, you recognize that, okay, you know what? I look at this cookie. I know what it looks like. Yeah. Okay. I'm aware. This is what I'm taking. Put it in your mouth and just let it sit on your tongue to take the flavor. And then you begin to chew after you become aware of what the taste of it is. And then you begin to chew it, and then you swallow it, and you don't pick up another piece until that taste is gone.
Ooh, okay.
And then you pick up another one. So try this the next time you have something like potato chips or something you really love that you know you're going to binge eat. Try that. And then try it also with something that you feel guilty about drinking or something you feel guilty about eating. Like there's a large population of Diet Coke lovers. I challenge you to put Diet Coke in your mouth and let it sit there for like 15 seconds until your taste buds recognize what that tastes like. And I guarantee you're gonna be like, oh, this tastes awful. It's so metal and chemical, and your love for Diet Coke will slowly start to dissipate. So things like something like that guilty pleasure, just let something sit on your tongue. Because of course, we jam it in and down it goes, and jam it in and down it goes, and jam it in and down it goes. But in order to eat in a more mindful state, we need to be pausing for that. And even if you want to take it one step further, like when you are from the preparation state. So when you're cutting that food, you're aware of, you know what, this food has come from a farmer, this and this. So part of the thing with my chocolate chip cookies is it's literally the recipe on the back of like the container. It's nothing more magical than a very basic recipe, but they're very therapeutic for me when I make them. So when I'm making them, I'm in such a happy space thinking of someone else that's going to enjoy them and that I'm sharing them, and almost like I'm blessing my meal I'm preparing. And that's what a lot of it is to me, is the blessing of the food. Like, you know what? There's this came in on this truck, and that poor truck driver is probably not home to see his family because he's trying to get me these chocolate chips. So I'm going to make sure I enjoy them as much as possible.
Oh, I love that.
Breaking that down a little bit, like the farmer that's growing that broccoli is doing it in such a state. And for you, I'm totally going to call you out, Rebecca. I know how deeply rooted you are in the farmers of your oils, and the respect you have for them. It transfers that beauty and that love and that sacredness is the same for those farmers or who are creating that food. So there's no reason why we can't shift that love and that just desire and sacredness of our oils into that space of food.
Oh, that connection that you've just painted, that is glorious. That would shift the way we take in anything.
Totally.
You've done so much for creating this opportunity for us to consider so many things. For some of us who are in your inner circle, some of these things we've known, but it's reminded us, it's refreshed us to go back and give this a listen. You've also given so many of us who have never really considered these moments of pause and these ways that we can nurture ourselves. You've given us so much to think about. The beauty of everything you've shared, however, is that there isn't anything that you have to do other than tap into what you already have. You keep referencing tools that are innate, things that we don't often give a lot of regard, but you've brought our attention back to the fact that everything is within our power. So yeah, it doesn't matter where you are in the world right now. It doesn't matter how restricted you are with the pandemic. Everything you've spoken about is something that is accessible now. And that's such a gift. There is, however, you have some unique offerings coming up. And I think that as people listen to this episode and hear the love that you're offering through your recommendations, they're going to want to become more connected to you. So I'm going to ask you a couple things. Share with us your upcoming offerings, and then let's wrap this up with how we can stay in connection with you, where we can follow you, where you like to hang out. Tell us those things so that we can maintain this relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of essentially what I have created is a program on a mindfulness audit. So it's about how our mind is wrapped around, and I have that is a limb on a program that's a bigger program that is called All the F's. So actually, you can see it behind me.
I see it behind you. Guys, we're hanging out. We can see each other while we're talking because I believe in looking in someone's eyes when we speak.
So All the F's is food, faith, and whatever the F else I want to talk about. So which is amazing because once I started down this path, so I'm doing the 5-day mindfulness, and they're based around food and your beliefs around food.
Okay.
Faith. Do you have faith? Do you have a higher being? What does that look like for you? Just asking those questions. We're talking about fitness, and not our body fitness, because I'm not going to give you a workout plan, but where our mind's at for that fitness, how we are judging ourselves, how we're questioning it, where we're shaming ourselves, how we're embracing that fit state. Are you breathing? Are you any of those kinds of things, and keeping our mind in a fit state? And then around family, who do you need to forgive in your family? Do you need to forgive yourself? What does your family dynamics, or what does that look like right now? Because a lot of times we get wrapped up in that and don't take the time to figure that out. And then your friendships. Where are your friendships at? Who are those people? Right now, we're in a time in the universe where a lot of those things are shifting, and we're not necessarily getting along with the person who's letting their kids go and hang out with all their friends, or the person who is completely isolated and won't even see you on the driveway. So there's a variation in where we are with our friends right now, and what's going on with yours. So I'm doing a 5-day mindfulness course, and then that leads into a bigger program about all the F's, and what that entails, and who is going to be joining this amazing community of people. And it's like this conversation, it's 5 weeks of it.
Incredible.
And how do we get to spend that much time together talking about all those things, sharing recipes, sharing the fact that I roast broccoli. So I take broccoli and I rub it with olive oil, lay it out on a tray, sprinkle a little, grind some salt on it, Himalayan salt, because your body is pH balanced with it, and then ground pepper, roast it in the oven, and then pull it out and just let it sit. And mine won't even make it to the table. My kids eat it off the tray because they love it. So when you roast something, it actually becomes like 6 times sweeter than if you were to boil it or blanch it or fry it. So you're bringing out all that beauty. So just those little nuggets, you know what? It is a culmination of all of those things that I want to serve and share with love from a really authentic part. And you can be part of it. Your husband can be part of it. Your kids can be part of it, because it's a big picture piece.
Yeah. So how would someone get connected to this? How do they sign up and say, yes, count me in, I want to do this?
So you can go to All the F's on Facebook or Instagram.
All the F's. This is an epic. This is epic. All the F's. Okay. I love it.
Because then their other F's are like flirting. My kids contributed farting.
That's what my kids would enjoy. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and it's having those really authentic conversations around it, because you know what, we all do it. Let's just talk about it.
Sure.
So and then you can also find me at Collective Kim 2.0 on Instagram.
Collective Kim 2.0.
Yeah.
I love this. This has been juicy. And you know what, Kim? Like, there's not an inauthentic bone in your body. You just deliver on the goods in so many unique and beautiful ways. And we haven't even tapped into, and this is why you need to come back. We need to further this conversation. Your world, you're speaking, you're all these speaking engagements that you're doing. And I know that this is not something that you had ever intended in your life, but it's a place that you find yourself in now. We need to explore that in the future. I also want to talk about your evolution into essential oils. I know you're probably weaving them into your program. And you mentioned the connection to farmers in terms of food. I know there's got to be a connection in terms of our co-impact sourcing with doTERRA. We have so much to continue talking about. So for right now, we'll bring this to a close with a giant thank you and an enormous virtual hug. Not as good as your hugs, which are literally represented in that chocolate chip cookie. Best chocolate chip cookies ever. I've had them, guys, so I know that they are absolutely epic. You being here has really emphasized to me how wonderful and how blessed I am to be in a position to have friends like you, to know women who are looking for ways to bring their gifts to the forefront and generously give them to others. Like I
Yeah.
said, it's one thing to have the tools, it's another thing to be a generous, giving spirit who offers them to other people in the way in which you do. You are an extraordinary, extraordinary female. And I am very, very lucky to have had you here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be on here. I love a co-female cheerleader, especially. I think there's no
Absolutely.
reason why we should not be cheering each other on at all times we can. So
So folks, follow Kim, find him at all the F's and at Collective Kim 2.0. Continue this relationship that you've begun with her today. If you're just meeting Kim for the first time, Kim, the joy has been all mine in having you here at the Planting Wildflowers podcast. Friends, if you're new to the podcast, please take a moment to rate, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends. It is so much appreciated. And the more we can share this kind of information, the greater the world is going to be when we can expose one another to these incredible tools. So thanks for hanging out with us here on the podcast. We'll look forward to the next time we can all be together. Stay happy and healthy, everyone. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode, friends. Thank you for hanging out with us here at the Planting Wildflowers podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you again real soon. And in the meantime, if you would be so kind as to rate, subscribe, and share this podcast with others, I'd be most grateful. We'll catch you again soon. Until then, take good care.